the recording, and that's cool. If I can find the right slides, that is. Hopefully that's loading. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Cool, so I'll get underway. So I think I've worked with most people here, so hopefully most of you know who I am, but for anyone that doesn't, I'm Hannah. I'm the Sustainability Project Manager for the Lancaster West Neighbourhood team. So this session is part of our regular sustainability series that we've started doing once a month. So usually we'll have an external expert coming and talking on various topics. So far we've had some good talks one on retrofitting, one was on waste and recycling, which have been really interesting. So today's a little bit different. You have me talking about the Lancaster West Sustainability Strategy. So we've done a bit of a review of this recently, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to just talk people through it and kind of get any feedback before we go to finalise it. The next session's actually next month is going to be on circular economy, so just say that now while people are in the room. Should be quite an interesting one. But cool, I will start going through now. So first slide and first thing to say is that our overarching vision for the sustainability strategy for Lancaster West is that Lancaster West becomes the UK's biggest eco neighbourhood. So in terms of what we mean by that term, our objectives are to become a model 21st century housing estate and a future neighbourhood, to go carbon neutral by 2030, improve air quality to levels recommended by the World Health Organization, become a green estate with a thriving environment, create a circular community with minimal waste, refurbish every home to a high standard, eradicate fuel poverty, and promote active transport and the use of electric vehicles. So I think hopefully what that gets across is that we're looking at quite a holistic picture of sustainability, and that we're interested in basically doing as much as we can to improve the estate as a place to live, while also doing what we can to help tackle climate change, the biodiversity crisis, things like that. So looking at the whole picture and doing everything we can to make the estate more sustainable. And to take a bit of a step back, so what is sustainability? The reason why I've put in this slide is because there isn't really any set definition about what sustainability means. So it's one which kind of up for grabs, and people are able to make definitions basically to suit what they want it to mean. But if in this case we are looking at kind of the whole picture of sustainability, so doing as much as we can to help support both individual well-being and the well-being of the planet as a whole. So the kind of most commonly used definition is sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So that's from a UN commission quite a while ago. And then that involves things like reducing carbon emissions, improving health and well-being, increasing green spaces, minimising waste, and tackling pollution. So looking at that whole picture. Then to clear up just the definition around carbon neutral, so reference that we want to go carbon neutral on Lancaster West by 2030, but what I actually mean by that is achieving an overall balance between the carbon emissions produced by the estate and the carbon that we remove from the atmosphere. So carbon is produced by things like heating homes, providing hot water for homes, powering any kind of appliances within the home. So all of these use energy, and at the moment, if they're all kind of powered by usual gas and electricity, then that creates carbon emissions. So to help to reduce carbon emissions from homes, we need to make homes as energy efficient as possible, then replace the energy supply with a kind of clean and green supply to make sure that the energy that we use is less carbon intensive, and then doing things to help remove carbon from the atmosphere such as creating new green space and doing things like minimising the amount of waste we use, increasing recycling and composting. So sustainability is something that's important for all of us and for our planet. So we're facing a global environmental crisis, so not just climate change, but also suffering from a loss of biodiversity and also depleting natural resources. It's actually in something this morning, so I've stolen a few facts from someone else who I heard speaking, but the last 7 years have actually been the warmest 7 years on Earth since records began, which I thought was a pretty striking fact, showing the actual impact of the climate crisis and what that means for the world. And it's a pattern which isn't going to change unless people take action against it. Another fact is that each year in the UK, 9,700 people die from living in cold homes and effectively from fuel poverty. In Kensington and Chelsea, the figure for residents in fuel poverty is around 12%. So there is a pretty significant risk of fuel poverty, and kind of doing these things is something that we can do to help tackle that. But making these changes to help tackle the climate crisis and loss of biodiversity and to protect our natural resources are also things that will help make Lancaster a better place to live. So refurbishing homes, making them more energy efficient will help create decent homes. By replacing the energy that we use with kind of green supplies will help to improve air quality and reduce pollution. And I've spelt the word space wrong there, but a green space has lots of benefits for health and well-being. So just being outside, getting fresh air, being around greenery has loads of benefits for people, aside from the impact that it has on biodiversity as well. So a bit more about the context that we are working in. So we've made the commitment for Lancaster to become carbon neutral by 2030. This is in line with the commitment by the wider council for all of its operations to become carbon neutral by 2030. So that has recently been expanded to include housing as well. So we're very much in line with the rest of RBKC. Last week, the UK government committed to reduce its emissions by 78% compared to 1990 levels by 2035. So that was building on its existing commitment to become net zero or carbon neutral by 2050, which is a very significant commitment, and obviously means that a lot of action needs to be taken very quickly. And the council will also committed to the whole borough becoming carbon neutral by 2040. So that's 10 years ahead of the rest of the UK. I think what that shows is that we need to do a lot to achieve all of this in quite a short amount of time. So it kind of shows the urgency of a lot of the work that we're doing and why it's so important that we get going on it now. The next slide just shows the impact that we can make by improving homes and making homes more energy efficient to reduce carbon emissions from there. So some of you have probably seen this already. So this is a bit of work that Anchor has been doing with some consultants to look at where the current carbon emissions from the council are coming from and the levels of carbon emissions that we have at the moment and for other greenhouse gases. And it shows that by far the vast majority of that actually comes from council-owned housing. So 57% of the council's greenhouse gas emissions come from its housing stock, which is massive. So to help reach the council's goal of becoming net zero by 2030, it's essential that improvements are made to housing before that as soon as possible. So also feeding into this strategy, we have spoken to residents and listened to what their priorities are and made sure that this is fed into what we're prioritising. So we did a survey earlier this year. From that, you can see that by far the vast majority of residents think that becoming carbon neutral is an important priority, both for them, for their home, and for the estate as a whole. It just shows that everybody's kind of on the same page, that it really is an important priority that we reduce carbon emissions and help tackle these issues. Then some of the priorities that residents have fed back to us to do with sustainability, one around recycling and composting has come out really high. So that's something that we know that we need to work on, particularly over the next year. And so from that, we actually have a food waste pilot coming up it's starting next week, where we'll be the first estate in the borough to collect food waste. So currently there isn't any provision for that. So it shows kind of responding to what residents' priorities actually are. Some of the other top priorities are reducing gas and electricity use and switching to green energy providers, and reducing water use as well. And you see that there have been some quite innovative ideas from residents as well about stuff we can do to help become more sustainable. So, for example, creating a zero waste food shop on or near the estate, and very keen on electric vehicle charging points. So those are things that we're all looking into at the moment and are all included within the strategy and action plans. So next slide is just about what going carbon neutral involves in practice. So we've tried to split the strategy up into different themes, but these are key activities that I think are included in every theme. So one is identifying needs and developing a strategic approach. So the things that I've already discussed kind of show that there is a clear need to do a lot of these things, but it's looking at the more kind of specific needs within that and getting a clear strategic approach about that. So that's why we've been working on a strategy. Horizon scanning and learning from others. So sustainability is still a relatively new and growing area. So it's really important that we're constantly on the lookout for new technologies, new ideas, and integrating that within our own strategies. So it's a really key part of our sustainability work now and in future. Maximising funding opportunities is always a key issue. So there's obviously only so much you can do within a constrained budget. So it's important for us to maximise the funding that we have. So particularly for the refurbishment, we can deliver as high quality refurbishment as we can do. So recently there have been various funds created by the government, such as the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund. We put in 3 bids to that and managed to get 19.4 million altogether to refurbish 5 of the blocks on the estate, 7 of the blocks even, which is over half the estate, so it's over 500 homes. It means that for these homes we'll be able to install new triple glazed windows, high quality insulation, trial renewable energy, and it's things that might not have been fully possible without that additional funding, so that's a really key one. Another area is understanding and developing feasible options, so that involves a lot of working with experts and really figuring out what is possible. So we have a lot of ideas, but it's working out which one of these can actually be delivered, understanding all the technical information and how it will work in practice. I think really key is that we co-design all of this with residents. So ensuring that residents really understand all of the technical and key information about these issues, and that residents are actually empowered to make these decisions themselves, and are on board with the whole kind of sustainability agenda as well. So another priority is one, how we can support residents to make their own decisions to do with sustainability. So things like how you can be more sustainable by minimising waste, things like that, but also involving residents in the design of the refurbishment, which will help improve the energy efficiency of homes and make them more sustainable. Obviously a key one is actually delivering improvements. So again, throughout each of the key themes, it's really key that we're actually able to deliver and see improvement. So a key one for that, for example, is recently delivered the council's first energy efficient home on Verity Close, which kind of has all the bells and whistles of a sustainable home. So it's powered by an air source heat pump, has solar panels on the roof, really high quality insulation and windows. And it's just about seeing those improvements actually come to light and the impact that that can make. So doing a lot of work at the moment to actually measure and track the progress of this and the impact that it's going to make in future and how it can be rolled out for the wider project. Then also sharing lessons, pioneering approaches. We're constantly piloting new things. So in the energy efficient home, I've already mentioned, a lot of that was around piloting new techniques and approaches to find out what the best approach will be for the rest of the refurbishment and for other homes kind of across the UK as well. And we're doing that in a whole range of different areas. So, for example, on waste and recycling, we've trialled hot bins on the estate where residents can put like old food waste in there, and it will help food waste transform into compost a lot quicker than like your average compost bins. And then that's being used for compost for gardens on the estate. So again, then helping to grow like local foods. So creating a bit of a circular economy, but just trialing lots of things like that. So any ideas from people and staff and residents are always welcome, and we're always keen to like try new things. And then last one is collaborating with experts and partners, so making sure that we can draw on other expertise. So working with a lot of consultants in a lot of different areas are able to really help us deliver the changes that we need to see to create improvements both for the planet and for residents on the estate. So I've alluded to these key themes already. As I said, the last slide just shows the activities which are involved in all of these. But I think to split up the work that we're doing kind of into a more manageable chunks, we've split it up into 5 key themes for how we can make Lancaster more sustainable and how we can achieve our vision of becoming an eco neighbourhood. So first one is making homes warm, comfortable and energy efficient. So that a lot of that's going to be through the refurbishment over the next few years. Switching the energy we use to a clean and green supply. So that includes just replacing gas at the moment, which is heating homes with low carbon heat network, also looking at other options to do renewables, creating a garden estate with a thriving environment, reducing waste, increasing recycling, and supporting residents to make sustainable lifestyle choices and reducing the carbon footprint of our services. So I'll go into a bit more detail about all of them in the next few slides. So the first one around making homes warm, comfortable and energy efficient. So as I mentioned, this is, a lot of this will be achieved over the next few years through the refurbishment of the estate. So where we are at the moment is in the detailed design stage of the refurbishment and looking at what the best options are going to be in terms of things like windows, insulation, ventilation to increase the supply of fresh air and make sure that things like insulation aren't going to lead to overheating in homes. Also installing energy efficient appliances and lighting. So at the moment we are piloting a lot of these things in void properties. We have been piloting the internal refurbishment of homes kind of as and when they become empty, so that when new residents move in, they already have a fully refurbished internally a fully refurbished home which has all modern energy efficient appliances and lighting, including like water saving shower heads, dual flush toilets and induction hobs in kitchens. And all of these things help reduce the energy demand of homes, which in turn is going to help reduce the carbon impact of using these homes, but also make some kind of modern, better homes to be living in. And another key part of the refurbishment is being able to use modern methods of construction to help to minimise disruption and the environmental impact of the refurbishment. And also add to that, we're working with suppliers to recycle materials and use kind of sustainably sourced materials to minimise the environmental impact of the actual delivery of the refurbishment, as well as kind of the impact of what the refurbishment is going to achieve in future. This slide's just a bit about how we're kind of measuring these things. So to make sure that we're actually making the impact that we want to see with this work, it's really important that we know kind of what we want to achieve, how we want to measure it. So looking at, so our targets are for all homes to reach an EPC rating of C or above after the full refurbishment. We know that EPCs, or energy performance certificates, aren't particularly good or like holistic whole measures of energy performance of a building. So we're also looking at the ENERFIT standard. So this includes things like space heating, energy demand, air tightness, you can see along the right there, and aiming towards these targets so that we can make sure that homes are performing as they should do, as we'd expect them to do, so truly like energy efficient and also bring the biggest benefits for people that are living in them. And yeah, the key kind of big ambition for this is that we achieve high standards of comfort and well-being for residents. So that's the most important thing, and that can be achieved through making these energy efficient improvements. Bottom left just shows what the EPC profile of the estate looks like at the moment. So you can see that the majority of those are rated a D, which one of the worst is kind of like towards the bottom of energy performance. So we want to get up into that kind of top tier of C or above. Second theme is all around switching energy we use to a clean and green supply. So we're looking at kind of fabric first whole house retrofits as the first step, but as well as that, so that is going to help to reduce the energy demand of buildings, but then on top of that, seeing what we can do to make sure the energy that's being supplied is as clean and green as possible, to make sure that there's less of an environmental impact of when we're supplying that heat. So what we're trying to do is phase out gas by 2030. So that's already being achieved in part through the internal refurbishment. So for example, replacing like typical gas cookers with induction hobs. Then in the longer term, we're looking to replace the communal gas boilers with a low carbon heat network. So the map on the right shows what the heating system is like at the moment. So the majority of homes on the estate are powered by 2 big gas boilers, which are pretty old and inefficient. So they are things which need replacing anyway, but taking that opportunity to deliver like a low carbon heat network that improves the energy supply for residents, but also really helps us towards our sustainable goals and reduces carbon emissions, help us get towards net zero. Also exploring other renewable technologies, so looking at solar panels and heat pumps, and doing basically everything we can to transition over to renewables. So we got some funding through the Green Homes Grant scheme recently. We're going to be using that to install solar panels on roofs, but also looking at installing green roofs at the same time. So really taking every opportunity to maximise it, do as much as we can at the same time, and hit all of these different themes. So what success looks like, we want to deliver a nationally significant model heat network, putting residents first, relying solely on renewable heat sources, and provide affordable heating and hot water whilst tackling fuel poverty. So those are kind of the key things that we want to achieve through the delivery of the heat network. Then the next theme is around creating a garden estate with a thriving environment. So where we are now is that only half of the UK population has easy access to green space, and on Lancaster West only 10% of residents have access to private green space. So it shows that there's a big responsibility for the Lancaster West team to provide good green spaces for residents on the estate so that they can access like green spaces which they might not have kind of within their own kind of private home. So what we're doing is turning grey areas of the estate green, doing what we can to grow herbs, vegetables and fruit in the garden so that people have locally grown produce that they're able to use and take part in growing themselves. So that's one kind of producing a bit of a circular economy on the estate, also helping to provide people with like local food, support health and well-being, also tackle food poverty. Also developing volunteer opportunities for local community. So we have a lot of residents and staff who get involved in gardening on the estate each week, which obviously has massive benefits for like health and well-being by getting outside, like getting in the fresh air, but also helps to green the estate. So it's again hitting quite a lot of things that we want to achieve. And then exploring the potential to install green roofs and walls wherever possible, so on both like homes and non-domestic buildings on the estate. So the North Kensington Resource Centre has really recently had some green walls installed, which one, look really good, make it a nicer place to be, but also has massive benefits for local biodiversity. Then next one, all around reducing waste and increasing recycling. So globally, 45% of global emissions come from making, transporting, using, disposing of materials. So it shows that there is massive improvements that can be made in terms of reducing waste, keeping stuff in use for as long as possible to help reduce carbon emissions, and then also will help us tackle the depletion of like natural resources. So what we're doing on Lanc West is developing a waste management strategy, following circular economy principles, keeping stuff in use for as long as possible, making it easier for residents to recycle by trialling new waste initiatives. So I think I already mentioned we have a food waste pilot starting next week, which will make it possible for residents to recycle food waste and have their food waste collected for the first time. So it's just things like that which will actually make it easy for people to recycle and to minimise waste. So trialling all different things like that and constantly like looking for new ways that we can do that. And I think I've already also mentioned the hot bins. So again, using that to compost food waste, minimise that. So that's also something we're doing through the refurbishment as well, looking at how we can minimise waste through the delivery of works by, I've already mentioned, using modern methods of construction, working with suppliers to use like sustainable and recycled materials and recycling our own waste where possible. Then last one is supporting sustainable lifestyle choices and reducing the carbon footprint of our own services. So how we're doing that is co-designing the refurbishment, empowering residents to decide how to improve the energy efficiency of their homes. So we've been doing a lot of engagement all around sustainability, including like drop-in events, webinars, surveys, just to help support resident understanding and knowledge around sustainability, but also get some of their own ideas and help making sure that we are trying to like implement them as and when we can. Running events to support knowledge and sustainable behaviours, but also doing pop-ups and webinars all around the actual refurbishment as well. So getting resident ideas and questions on how we can improve the energy efficiency of homes and really work with residents to design that refurbishment and deliver something that works for them. Another thing we're doing is rolling out smart meters to enable residents to see and to reduce their energy use. So that's one thing the UK government are kind of doing more widely by installing smart meters so that people can see how much energy they're using. And if people are able to see that, it makes it easier to actually be kind of more like recognise the amount that you're using and be able to reduce that if you choose to, and also like reduce the amount that you're spending on energy as well. So benefits both the individual and the planet. And then another thing we're doing is installing electric vehicle charging points across the estate, encouraging active transport. In our team as well, our operatives team are now using electric vans and cargo bikes. So yeah, reducing the impact of the works that we're doing as well, and then supporting residents to do the same. So that is a quick summary of the strategy, sort of things that involve, sort of things that we're doing and thinking about. Yeah, that's all from me. And if anybody has any questions now, I'll stop sharing and like happy to take any. And yeah, obviously happy to answer any emails or anything as well if anyone wants to get in touch after.
Hi, Hannah.
Hello, you're right.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Just interested in you talking about low carbon heat network and sort of moving on from gas boilers. Have you got any idea what that might be? I mean, we keep talking about air source heat pumps, but I don't really think there's a lot of talk about it. But I don't, if I was honest, I don't think technology has quite caught up yet in how we deal with this moving forward. And we know that air source heat pumps actually cause quite a lot of problems in that they're quite noisy. So it's a difficult one in planning, because whilst we encourage this, I think I'll be the first to admit we're not 100% sure where we will be. It's a rapidly moving area, I accept, but I just don't think at this very moment we're there yet in terms of what solutions come forward for this kind of thing. So it's just a comment rather than anything else.
I'm glad Jeff's popped up. I was actually going to call on you, Jeff, as our resident heat network expert. So I don't know if the two of you have met, but I don't know if you want to give a bit of a response on that.
Yeah, so we've been actively looking at it as to, basically how we get to zero carbon, looking at different technologies. So air source heat pumps, large air source heat pumps, as well as sewer, extracting heat from the sewer. So we're actively monitoring the sewer going through the trunk sewer down on Bramley Road at the moment. So our preferred option is actually large scale air source heat pumps. So you're right, there are some downsides with air source heat pumps, certainly individual air source heat pumps, certainly if you're into conservation areas or even elsewhere, visually don't look great, but they are renewable. I guess the big advantage is the larger you go with the air source heat pump, the more efficient it gets. So we would, on the estate, we'll have our zero carbon energy centre, and we'll be looking to use air source heat pumps at that location. So actually away from homes, so you alleviate the problem with the noise and also the space take. So rather than each home having to have an individual air source heat pump taking up some space on the balcony, etc., you wouldn't need that. It's all done centrally. So and wherever possible, we'll actually look to put those air source heat pumps at a high level as well to again minimise the impact for any properties that are nearby. So I think it is achievable, but with a large air source heat pump and electric boilers rather than individual air source heat pumps.
Yeah, Jeff, just to ask, Gonzalo Jimenez, Kensington & Chelsea Energy Manager. In the past, I have been involved with similar projects, not for housing. And my experience is for new builds, fine, though I don't have any issue. But when we refurbish sites, providing enough heat for those sites is very difficult. Not sure what have changed the last 10 years, but before we used to have always problem. Each time that we used to install a heat pump, air source or water source, they would never provide enough heat for the site. I am talking about refurbishing, not talking about new build, because I know properly design is fine, but for refurbished site, it's been always a problem, or at least my experience.
So I guess the big advantage here is that we're doing the right thing. We're reducing the energy demand in the first place. So we're making each of the homes as energy efficient as possible. And then the bit of heat that's left that's still needed for space heating and hot water, we're then looking to provide a zero carbon source through the new heat network. So the business case does stack up to be able to enable that to happen. So that's what we've been busy doing over the last sort of few months, running the techno-economic and financial models to see whether we can actually put residents first and achieve our environmental ambitions, and it shows that we can.
Thank you.
No worries.
Anka, did you want to jump in and say something?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation and well done for all the work. I just wanted to, I mean, we're already working a lot together, but it will be useful if these things kind of, because we're in the process of developing the Council's Climate Emergency Action Plan, and we need to make sure that this kind of initiatives and the priorities that you guys have are reflected in a way. So I would be interested to see how this can be reflected, and then some of the priorities that we will be included kind of be taken forward by Lancaster. And then it will be great to see how we can work together a bit more on the Homes for Health Fuel Poverty program and support residents, because we're running out of, well, the fund, our external funding finishes this year. Hopefully the project will be extended till January or February, subject to the funder approving this. But yeah, it will be useful, as fuel poverty is such an important part of your work, is to see how we can support more residents. I mean, we've promoted the project in the past, but during the pandemic, we were offering telephone consultation, and we didn't have a high uptake, I would say, for the council housing stock. So yeah, I would be keen. And just to answer to Jonathan's question around the heat pumps, because I'm reviewing energy assessments as we speak. Most of the developers for the new builds are considering heat pumps. So yeah, the technologies, I guess, is still to be matured, but yeah, it's changing, and most of the developments are actually including this in their energy assessments.
Yeah, it's just, I suppose, just the nature of the borough, with like 75% of our area in conservation area, our residents not being happy. You know, obviously people living very close together, so having the visual impact of the thing and the noise impact, it's a particular challenge in our borough as opposed to others. So I always say, if you can do it in Kensington, Chelsea, you can probably do it anywhere actually. But it does leave that challenge. So it'd be interesting to see how that one pans out, because obviously in planning we were the ones that will be the get the sort of backlash, as it were, of it. So yeah, be interested in that.
And I think the transition to gas it will be maybe slower and painful. Like Justin, I don't know if Justin is on the call, but in terms of the private rented sector and the typologies of houses that we have. So one of the things that we were discussing with Justin is to start trying to pilot some of this, how these technologies will actually work in the different types of typologies that we have in Kensington and Chelsea.
Can I come in there? I mean, the approach of the heat network is the fabric first approach. So what we're undertaking under the refurbishment is to ensure that we're using obviously like triple glazing. We're looking at various options of insulation, whether it's internal or external, to lower the energy demand. So you're rightly saying about the technology, it has improved over the years. But what we're trying to achieve here with the heat network is to insulate the properties, so you don't need so much energy to heat up your properties or air leakages, etc. So that's one of the main criteria for the heat network. It's got to work together.
Sure.
Yeah, and just one thing to add to that then is once we've proved that we can do this at Lancaster West, then the opportunity is to use that model across the rest of the borough. So we're looking at a cross-borough master plan, energy master plan, to see where heat networks may also be appropriate. And you can then look to do a fabric first and zero carbon heat network again. And properties that are in conservation areas that are densely packed together may well be suited to a heat network, something to be tested, but could actually get around that problem of sort of the visual appearance, because again, if you've got a central energy centre rather than the plant on each building, could actually be the solution.
Gonzalo and Anka, are those
Okay.
like old hands or
Quick
new?
question, Hannah.
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned you are trying to replace cookers for gas cookers and that kind of equipment for what kind of technology? I just interested. We have been trying to do some stuff at home, but I want to know more. What you are using.
Looking. So what we've been doing in our like empty homes, so as homes become empty, we've been refurbishing them internally. So specifically for the cookers, replacing like gas hobs with induction hobs. So they're basically like electric powered, but more efficient than gas hobs. So are actually better for cooking, and obviously don't use gas, so one are better for like internal air quality, also don't have the same amount of carbon emissions as a gas hob would have, and as like the electric grid becomes more like environmentally friendly, so less carbon intensive, and it means that it's going to help support basically the reduction of carbon emissions longer term as well.
What about the running cost?
They're running costs. So at the moment, electricity is like quite a lot more expensive than gas now. In future, I think gas is obviously going to become more expensive and essentially like illegal in years to come to use. So longer term, it's going to have benefits, but they're also more efficient. So say if you're like cooking something, it's going to be able to do that a lot quicker than like your average gas boiler could do as well. It's kind of long-term thinking, but also some benefits shorter term as well.
Sure. I just want to sound interesting. We have been invested in a electric pressure cooker, and things that take 20 minutes suddenly take 2 minutes. So it's just interesting how the technology have changed. Thank you anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Anka, was that a new hand as well?
Yeah, just one final point. I'm really happy that Andrew mentioned about fabric first. Of course, fabric is, the fabric first is key, but also it's important for us to start talking about reducing energy demand and reducing energy consumption as a key. So yeah, it's just one point for us to address, and I think it will be key for our action plans in the future.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think obviously key for us is that we are looking at that fabric first approach. So looking at how we can, particularly for homes, improve the energy efficiency, mean that they're using a lot less energy. And then that's obviously going to make things like the heat network more like viable to actually be able to create, because there's lower demand. But the less energy you use, the less impact that's going to have, kind of whichever way you're looking at it. So yeah, fabric first always going to be kind of that key approach for us, and being able to really minimise energy use. Similar principles. So when we're looking at waste as well, the first step is always going to need to be to minimise like consumption and waste before we look at anything else. So Janet just sent a message saying great insight. Last few weeks, months, interests often ultimately come back to money matters for many. Fabric first heat network approach definitely addresses that. Have you had any thoughts about how you can look at cultural and lifestyle sustainability choices through money saving? Janet, do you want to just pop up quickly and say exactly what you mean by that?
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I think it's just quite often when I've been speaking with residents, they say a green choice feels like a luxury, and it's something that's nice to have rather than seen as something that is of essential benefit to them. So I guess it's kind of like a challenge stroke question. How can you kind of address their daily like financial needs through the sustainability strategy? question.
Yeah, that is a big question. But I think it all comes back to kind of a lot of these things that we are trying to do, as well as kind of making things more sustainable, helping to tackle like a climate environmental crisis, is also going to have benefits for residents, and that's like a very big thing of what we want to achieve. So that's kind of on equal footing really of what we want to do in terms of environmental benefits. So for example, like if we're refurbishing homes, then that's going to improve homes, and in the long term it's going to help save money around like energy bills. So we're looking at the ways that we can do things which are actually going to bring those benefits. I think there's probably more we can carry on doing to help one kind of bridge that gap for people. So making sure that people are kind of linking in their minds that things like installing new windows, one, it's going to make homes more comfortable and warmer, like reduce drafts, it's going to help reduce energy bills, and it's also going to help reduce energy demand and carbon emissions. So kind of supporting people to make those links, I think, is going to be quite critical to helping really the success of this strategy and the success of us like reaching our goals and like the impact that it's going to have for people. I think there's also more we can do. So for example, what Anka was saying around the Homes for Health project, so things like that we can actively do to support people to, so that is going to that scheme helps people to reduce their energy use and switch to like green suppliers, but it's also helping to tackle like fuel poverty. So I think using schemes like that and filling any gaps that we can do is going to be really key to helping like bridge that gap, and looking at how we can save people money as well as save the planet. Does anybody else have any final like questions or comments? Great. I think we are all good to wrap up there then, unless anyone has anything they wanted to jump out with. But thanks everyone for getting involved today. I think there's really been a good like conversation at the end as well. Hopefully people found it useful. Obviously happy to chat with anyone over email or anything if you have any questions or anything else you want to talk about. And I think I mentioned the next one of these is going to be at a similar time next month, and it is going to be about circular economy with someone from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So they kind of really know their stuff around how we going to be able to move to a circular economy. So I think it should be a really interesting session. So hopefully you can all make that one as well. I think Alice will send over the diary invite if she hasn't already. Great. Thanks everybody. Speak to you all soon.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Anna.
Thank you.
Bye.